Welcome to Episode 7 of the Aluminium Podcast, Apple News with a British accent, where every week I'll be joined by a different guest from the world of tech and beyond, bringing you the latest Apple and wider technology news, as well as an insight into our guests and their stories in technology. And for our 7th episode, I'm delighted to welcome self-confessed Samsung fanboy Benjy from BenObi Tech. Welcome!
Happy to be here.
I thought I'd drop that in. That's in your Twitter bio at the minute, although more of your videos seem to be about Apple these days.
Yeah.
But it's
No, that was a joke.
Okay.
I updated it yesterday as a joke, yeah.
I was going to say it's fun to have different opinions on. Was this because of your I hate Apple?
Yeah, it was because of that recent interaction. I was like, you know what? Let's just go all the way.
Oh no, that account's really funny though. Like, I don't even know if they believe what they're saying.
I know. I've heard rumors that they actually have a Mac that they use on a daily basis, and they also have like access to other Apple devices and stuff that they use. And they're probably just, I mean, at this point, they're probably making money from their account on X, and they just keep rolling with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say we're going to come to this a little bit later, but you're not opposed to courting controversy, I guess, with the way that you title some of your videos and stuff like that. So we'll come to that a little bit later, I think. But first of all, because people may not know you, I'm trying to get quite a diverse group that we're talking to. So we've talked to John Prosser, we've talked to Jacqueline, and then we've talked to some smaller creators as well, which I like the idea of kind of, because I'm not even up to mid-level yet. I'm definitely on the smaller creator side of things. But it's great to have some of the big names and some of the smaller names, and some people may not know you. So we go through some this or that questions at the start of every podcast, and feel free to go in a third direction if that makes more sense for you. So the first one is always Xbox or PlayStation.
For now it's Xbox, mainly because like of the Xbox Cloud and stuff like, and Game Pass as well. Those are basically the only two reasons why I'm with Xbox.
Fair enough. And they've had a bunch of news come out recently about that stuff, right? They're being a bit more open to games moving between Xbox and PlayStation. Some of their previous exclusives are now going that way, I think.
Yeah, I'm not really that big of a gamer, to be honest. I just have an Xbox that I play occasionally.
That's the one.
And when I do, it's either FIFA or Fortnite, one of the two.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So my kids love a bit of Fortnite, but they just play it on their iPads through Xbox Cloud, through the browser, which works really well.
Yeah, it works well. I think sometimes it's just if you have a bad internet connection, the cloud service doesn't really work very well. But it works. I guess it works decently well.
I've always been more like COD Mobile. I really like, and especially if you play it on the iPad, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, no, I think iPads. Yeah, iPads are great for gaming, honestly.
Yeah, I think where people have been talking about Apple creating their own game console, I'm like, we have that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, they technically tried and failed with the games console ages ago.
Oh, if we're talking back to Pippin, like, yeah, we can go that far back.
And they've also tried with the Apple TV to try to make that into a games console. That didn't work out either. So,
but imagine having an Apple TV now with an M3 inside, with the ray tracing and everything else. That could be pretty compelling.
That would be pretty cool.
Or even an A17 Pro, that would still have it, right? If they're only doing one display.
Yeah, it still has ray tracing.
Interesting. I also kind of think, just before we move on, Apple TV, why are we not getting like a 3D version of Apple TV now that we've got spatial video being recorded on our phones? I feel like that's...
Yeah, I think a problem with that is at least from what I've seen, 3D TVs aren't really that big of a thing anymore. They're like a little bit more rare. So maybe it doesn't make full sense. I mean, if they came out with a full-on TV, then they probably could. But
well, the next studio display becomes spatial.
Ooh, or that.
That could be interesting. Anyway, on to the next question. So, Windows or Mac?
Mac.
You are 100%. A Mac guy?
Yeah. I've used Windows before. I had so many issues. I built my own PC a few years ago. I thought it was a great idea. It was supposed to be a Hackintosh, and then I ended up using it as a PC, and I tried editing videos in Premiere and stuff like that. The computer would just crash every 5 minutes. Updates would randomly happen without me even asking. So I'm like, nah, I'll stick to Mac because it does have its issues, but it's a lot more reliable in my experience.
Yeah, stability is a big thing, and I would say even when I've had crashes with things like Final Cut, it saved everything till about
Oh
three,
yeah,
4 seconds before that one thing that crashed it.
it's
Um,
so
a-
much better.
and even then, I think it's probably been over a year since I've had any kind of crash in Final Cut, like
Hmm.
rock solid.
Yeah.
Um, and then Android or iOS, obviously you're a Samsung guy, so
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, I've always been an iPhone guy. I've switched back and forth. In fact, I even have a Pixel 8 right now that I'm kind
hmm
of on and off. I was also a Samsung user for a few years, but yeah, I just prefer the simplicity of Apple. And since I have a MacBook, it just makes sense
hmm
because I can just AirDrop files. I record everything on my phone, all my videos on my iPhone 14 Pro, and then just AirDrop it. It just makes the
Yep.
workflow so much easier.
Are you filming on that right now?
Yeah, the 14 Pro. Yeah,
Yeah. So same. We're both using 14 Pros to record this, which
it's
is
a
kind of
great.
fun.
I mean, it's a great phone still today. Like I can't
Yeah.
complain with the video quality.
And
It's
I'm
really good.
guessing, like me, you're probably on like a 2-year deal as well, so you'll be upgrading this
Yeah.
year.
Well, I have
Cool.
the 15 Pro Max as
Okay.
well. So I've got two phones on contracts, but I'll be switching to the 16 Pro later on this year once I get rid of the 14 Pro. So
Okay. Cool. But yeah, I mean, the video on these things is bonkers good at the minute. So, and to be
it is.
fair, the Pixel is the other one that I would kind of consider. I like the design style. I like that
Hmm.
kind of visor look on the back. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but it looks pretty good. Um.
And also like in my experience with the Pixel 8 is this is like I've tried other Pixels before, but this is the smoothest I've ever
mm,
like the smoothest Android phone I've ever used. And I actually this is like a bit of a hot take, but I'd say that the display on the Pixel 8, the 120 hertz display, is a lot smoother than 120 hertz on the iPhone. But that's just me.
oh, I'm
A lot of people
still
disagree on that.
I'm still on that weird edge case where I can't see the difference between 60 and 120. So it will probably
Right.
make no difference to me at all. Um, and I really want to see the difference. And I obviously get roasted every time I say this on Twitter that like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I use a
I
12 and a 14 Pro at the same time all day.
yeah.
I cannot tell the difference.
I mean, I completely agree. Like most people can't tell the difference, and honestly, if I'm not looking out for it, I don't notice it either. Like
Yeah,
I've got my MacBook's 120 hertz, and then I've got a monitor that's 75 hertz, and I can't really tell the difference
yeah. I
most of
mean,
the time. So it's
yeah.
yeah, it's only there if you look or if you have some weird brain and
hmm
you notice
Because
those
my
kind of
external
things.
display as well runs through a hub from my MacBook Air. I've got a
Right.
4K 40-inch screen in front of me that only runs at 30.
Oh wow.
Don't care. Can't tell. It really makes no
That's
difference to me
interesting.
whatsoever. But then I'm not a gamer. I don't like. I'm not playing like high-end shooter games, that kind of stuff. Which
Yeah.
I get. It kind of makes a little difference there.
Hmm.
Okay, next question: tea or coffee, and answer carefully. This is important.
Neither actually.
Oh,
I don't drink either of them.
are you someone that avoids caffeine in general? Are you not like
No,
energy
it's
drink
like
kind of
it's like a
person?
religious thing. I have caffeine every now and then,
Okay,
but no, neither of them.
okay. And then the last one on this either or is YouTube or podcasts. Are you a YouTube guy or a podcast listener?
More YouTube. Like sometimes I will put on a podcast on YouTube and listen to it,
hmm
but most of the time I just go to YouTube because
Okay.
just yeah,
I just drive so much. I think podcasts is becoming like more consumption for me, especially time wise. Not in terms of
yeah,
how many shows and stuff, but like the fact that I can have it in my ears and like wander around the house and do stuff, and then get in the car and carry on with it.
yeah.
Um,
No, podcasts are great. I think, and I think even YouTube now pushing podcasts a lot more. And if you have a YouTube Premium, it's great.
yeah,
Like you just
I mean, we're definitely like this podcast is being recorded. We put it out through Spotify. Actually, they're the host for the podcast because
right.
it's what Anchor used to be, so it's completely free. It's amazing.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I love
uh,
Anchor.
but
So
then
good.
it's also set up as a podcast through YouTube so that people kind of know that it's a series and they're more likely to be suggested it, I guess. That kind
Hmm.
of works. Like, I like it. I like what's going on. And in terms of your current setup, I know you've mentioned already that you're using a Mac. What's your current setup in terms of like your headphones, your mic? the Mac that you're using, that kind of stuff. And I also noticed something interesting on one of your videos that it says edited by Gling AI.
Oh yeah,
Interesting. Tell
I'll
me.
mention that as well. So okay, so running the whole setup, I've got an M1 Pro MacBook Pro with 16 gigs of RAM, absolute machine. I just wish I got 1 terabyte. I probably should have gotten more because I'm constantly running out of storage. And then I've got, as a camera, I used my iPhone 14 Pro for most of this stuff. I've got an Acer monitor. No idea what model it is. I just got it on eBay for 100 quid, and I was like, okay, cool.
Nice.
Mic, I've got a Rode NT USB that my dad got like a decade ago, and I still use it to this day. It's still great. I think it's still even sold by
Hmm.
Rode. And then what other stuff like setup? Do you also mean like devices that I use on a daily basis, or?
Yeah, sure. Like whatever
Yeah,
you're
so I've got
using to make your videos, I
15,
guess.
15 Pro Max.
Hmm.
I do a lot of like video planning and stuff on my phone as well, and then I've got the Apple Watch Series 9. And with Gling is actually a platform that kind of chops up your video for you, which is really cool. So like you just
Mm.
load up the video file, and it'll cut out mistakes. It'll cut out like dead air in the video. And so I just put it in the description because they give me free credits every time I do. So
Nice.
it's actually really good. Like it saves me so much time when I'm editing long form videos.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
I
great.
think I'm gonna have to check it out. Like I had a quick look on the website and I noticed at the bottom, the cookies pop up said Notion uses cookies to track. So is it owned by Notion?
I'm not sure. I mean, I just heard it. I'm in some tech creators group chat. There's like a few
Nobody's
of us
ever
in there.
invited me to those. I'm very
I'll see if we
sad.
can get you on. I'll
Mm.
see if we can get you on. But yeah, so like I heard from another creator who was like, "Oh yeah, I use Gling. It's really really good." So I was like, "Let me try it." And I mean, if you upload a video once a week, it's basically free because all you have to do is put that little link in the description, and then it gives
Mm.
you a free credit every time, as long as it's within 7 days. So I've been using that, um, and it just works great. Saves
Nice.
hours of time. Because I do when I record videos, sometimes my A roll is like 20, 30 minutes, and then I'm just
Hmm.
sitting there for 2 hours to cut bits out and then make it. But with this, in like 30 minutes, I do everything.
Yeah.
And then I just add B roll and everything else later. And it plugs straight into Final Cut Pro as well,
Oh,
which is
nice.
great. It
Yeah. So I
exports it as an
noticed.
XML file or whatever it's called.
Okay. Yeah. So I noticed you've got some like background music beds and stuff. That's all manual, but it's just kind of like it chops it up, takes out your
Yeah,
gaps, takes
it's just for
retakes
the
out.
yeah, it's just for those. And
Mm.
it also like transcribes the whole video for you so that you can
Nice.
just go through and be like, okay, this was a mistake. I'll just cut this out. Sometimes there is a little bit of tweaking you have to do sometimes, but it does most of the work for you, especially if you say the same sentence like 3 or 4 times because you're trying to say it right. Um, then that, and I guess also part of the setup, I will also mention another app is Asana, which is
Hmm.
what I use to keep track of all of my video projects and stuff. Like whenever I have an
Nice.
idea, I put it in there. I use like the board. I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's like a board and you just move it across. Like I've got a planning phase and then moves on to the recording phase and then the editing and so on and so forth. And I just put all the script in there, everything I need. And then once I've got everything done, I open up Final Cut Pro, Asana, and I know exactly what the
Oh,
script is
nice.
like and
I mean,
everything. It's
I
really good.
wish I was this organized. Like, I struggle if I don't make a video and then edit it the same day and then hit publish. It's
Right.
probably just going to disappear into the ether. Like, I am the worst, and I'll say this quite proudly. I am the worst person for people to send like a product to for a review,
Right.
because if I unbox it and then I put it down, then I'll use it and I'll test it, and then I'll be trying to find that B-roll that I shot when I know, oh, that's annoying. Oh, and then it'll get a couple of weeks behind, and I'll be like, oh, but I haven't released any news stuff, so I don't really want to do just like a one-off video for at the minute. I'm working on an Apple Pencil review for a company that basically does. They're called an A14. And it's great. It's everything apart from like angle, which I don't think anyone can
Right.
do outside of Apple.
Hmm.
And it's brilliant. But I keep trying to sit down and like do myself a new logo using it to film, and it just never happens. And I'm
Yeah.
like the mount that I'm using for right now, Sodi have sent me for continuity camera, so we're using that right now, and it's sitting up here. I've used it for like 3 videos, and I keep saying, "Oh yeah, I've used this. It's really good," and then actually trying to make a whole video around it is really
Yeah.
difficult because it's like it's a mount. It's really good. You know, it's a MagSafe thing. It works really, really well. It sits perfectly on top of my thing. How do I make that into a longer video? You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
that's the problem with a lot of stuff. Like I get brands reach out to me all the time. They're like, "Can you make a full YouTube video about this?" And I'm like, it's just a case. Why should I make a
yeah,
video about one case? No, like that's why I mainly just focus on short form content.
hmm
Like I basically make TikTok videos, and then YouTube is kind of just something I do every now and then.
yeah,
Um, and it's easy to just like a company's like, oh, can you feature this product? I'm like, okay, 30-second video. It does this, and that. It's great. Link in bio. There you go.
yeah, yeah.
Get
And
paid.
your bio is because you've got one of the like link. Is it Linktree you use?
Linktree. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's comprehensive. Like, there's so many products in there that you've tested, and I'm guessing you only put the ones that are worth buying in there. You don't like
Yeah.
throw everything in there just because
Nah, nah,
you've
nah.
tested it.
I put most of the ones in there are ones that I either get commission on or that I
hmm
did a brand deal with, and
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah,
Yeah, and then I've got my social medias in there as well. Linktree's great, honestly.
yeah. And like, don't give us numbers or anything, but does it actually work for you? Do you actually get some reasonable return on
Yeah.
having stuff in
No,
there?
no, yeah. Like I
Yeah.
get I had one that I worked with one company that I worked with that was like a Netflix password sharing subscription thing.
Oh yeah, I think
Um
I've seen that.
the video I posted the video onto TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and it did great on Instagram, and I made like $100 in
Mm,
commissions within a few days, and I was like, okay, interesting.
nice.
So it does work. People
Yeah.
click on the links, and then also I've been working with Timu as well.
Okay.
And those links have been getting a lot of clicks as well. So yeah, it's pretty decent.
Yeah, for some reason, I can't even remember what it was I was thinking of yesterday, but I was talking and saying like, "Oh, I need to order something or other from Timu," and I've like, no, I've never used Timu. I've used Wish in the past, and it's hit or miss. And I feel like Timu is that kind of thing where it's a little bit kind of you
Yeah,
might get something great, but
it's one of those kind of like we've seen them come and go in waves. Like AliExpress was really big back in the
mhm.
day. It still kind of is. And then we had Wish, and then we had Sheen kind of for a little
Yeah,
bit, and
yeah,
it's still kind of popular. And then now Timu. So they're all kind of like, yeah, a lot of the products are hit and miss, but then
mm,
there are a lot of the products that I get sent from Timu that are actually pretty decent. Like I recently got sent. Actually, I've got it here. This like smartphone gimbal, and
oh
it's
nice,
surprisingly good. I've got a DJI Osmo
mm,
Mobile as well, and comparing the two, this thing does basically the same stuff for half the price.
yeah.
Um, so you can get some good stuff. It's just
Whether
it's
you
not
get the
great a
good
lot of the
stuff,
time.
whether you hit the
Exactly.
jackpot the first time or
Yeah.
not. Oh,
hmm
cool. So yeah, I think we sort of vaguely touched upon a little bit earlier, like how long have you actually been doing YouTube and I guess TikTok videos? And like, I think I did discover you through something that I would have probably said was like a bit clickbaity. Um, but yeah, it made me click and I've carried on watching your stuff. So like, is there a place for clickbait when it's kind of it's getting that interest click as long as it kind of does deliver on what you're saying at some point in the
Right.
video?
Yeah. So I think so. I've been making videos for a very long time. I've always, since I was like 5 or 6, I used to run around the house with our family's camcorder, recording everything. And then when my parents got an iMac, I started editing videos on there. I was about 9 when I posted like my first few YouTube videos.
hmm
And then it's kind of been on and off since then. Like later on in my teens, I started taking YouTube a little bit more seriously, and I started creating tech videos because beforehand I did a lot of Lego stop motions.
Mm,
And I was like obsessed with Lego growing up. So it was
me
all
too.
Lego stop motions or nothing. Um, so I loved like watching YouTube, and I was like, "Oh, this looks really cool. Let me see if I can do it." My stop motions were terrible, at least at the beginning. And then I started really liking Apple products and tech. I got my first iPhone, which was an iPhone 4S, and then I started making tech videos with one of my best friends actually. It's like, hey, we should start a YouTube channel and just make random tech videos. So we destroyed a bunch of phones and stuff. They were like really old. or like dummy units and stuff, which was fun. Back when Tech Racks was I don't know if you remember him. He like destroys every time an iPhone comes out. He's got a knife and hammer test. He did a test on a Cybertruck last week where he throws like a ball at it and stuff like that. So he kind of inspired me to start doing tech videos, and then I did a little bit more like tech journalism. And then I started doing TikTok probably like 2-ish years ago. And only recently as it started picking up. Like I recently hit 22,000 followers, which is pretty good. I was at like 15K at the end of last year. So I've just been doing that, and it's been great. And with the question you asked about the titles, sometimes I do, like when I'm planning the video, I think, oh, this could be like a really good title. I try to trigger an emotional response with my titles sometimes. Yeah. Like I try to put something, even if you see my TikToks, like the first few seconds, sometimes I say something a little bit controversial. Because I've found that when you say something controversial, when the title is controversial, it really triggers a response. Yeah. Like I've had videos, like I did a video on the iPhone SE4, and I said, okay, it's going to have this, this, and that. And then at the very end, I said, maybe this is going to be the ultimate Android killer. And then the comments were all like, oh, how dare you? Like, no, Samsung is better, this and that. And so it just triggered an emotional response with some people. And they're like, oh, like I saw it and I was like, okay, I should probably do more of this. Title. And so like in almost all my videos now, I mention one thing, and Android fanboys are literally the easiest people to trigger. I find in the tech community. Really fun. It's so fun. And like sometimes even with my tweets, some of my tweets sometimes or replies, I'm just like, and a lot of the stuff I say is sarcasm or like satire. But it's just so funny just to annoy them, because then they give you engagement and it's like, you just get views from it just by saying something silly, and it's great. It works. And sometimes like when I post a video and I think, oh, this title's going to be really good, and it doesn't work, I change it and I change it and I change it. But yeah, it really is just about like, I want to have titles that people see and they're like, I mean, there are a couple that are like very basic. Like I've been doing a series where I revisit like older iPhones. Like I did one on the iPhone 14 Pro recently. It's just like, should you buy the iPhone 14 Pro in 2024? Simple stuff. But then I've got the ones where it's like the end of the iPhone. And that video did really well. One. That kind of stuff. So yeah, it depends on the video, but a lot of the time, even if the title doesn't trigger a response, something I say in the video will. Yeah. And it's just structuring it around that.
Yeah, because I think your last video from your channel was about I sold my iPad and so should you.
Oh yeah, that
which
too.
Which makes you think it's like iPad's dead, but actually you get towards the end of the video and I guess spoilers, but go and watch the video anyway. It's kind of like, yeah, the next iPad is going to be kind of crazy in terms of the changes that they're coming up with, potentially with things like MagSafe coming to iPad. I'm in the market. I think iPad Mini is going to be my next iPad. So I've been using the A14 Air that came out with the 14. No, hang on. Was it the 12? No, it was the iPhone 12, wasn't it? That came out with the
I think iPad so,
Air
yeah.
with the first flat sides. Yeah, it was at the beginning of the pandemic. And I mean, I'm still using that day to day, and there's nothing about it that's making me think I need to trade this in, except that my kids have stolen it. Even though they both have 9th gens, like their own. Right. One of them really wants to keep his plugged in all the time, just because he has autism, and he hates it if the number doesn't say 100 at the top. So his one stays plugged in, and he happily wanders around the house with mine. So that's quite annoying for me. But yeah. A couple of other things that came up in the news the last few days, and to be clear, we are recording this a couple of days early because I'm traveling later in the week. Apple Ring is apparently in development to rival Samsung and I guess Aura's rings. Samsung kind of brought theirs at the last Unpacked event, and I said I don't care because I don't think anyone else cares. How are you feeling about the option of like fitness tracking rings as opposed to watches? I feel like it's a bit redundant, but I may be wrong.
I mean, I think like I can kind of see a market for it. Like there are people who don't maybe want to wear a watch. Maybe they don't need to wear a watch. Like there's the Whoop band, for example. I don't know if you've heard about that one. It's literally just a fitness tracker. It doesn't have any smart watch functions. Like you can't do anything on it. It just tracks your blood, maybe blood oxygen, heart rate, that kind of stuff. And so people buy that. And then there's people that buy the Aura ring. I think the only reason I would get one is for sleep tracking, just because I use my Apple Watch for sleep tracking, but sometimes it is annoying. I have to charge it before I go to bed, or like when I wake up, and then it's just on my wrist. I had to get used to sleeping with it because I didn't like it at the beginning, and so I kind of see it for that. And also for those people who just don't like smartwatches, they just get the ring instead. Or you can have both the Apple Watch and the ring, and you have double the tracking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I solved the sleep tracking thing by having two watches. So my old one is my when this one's charging watch. Just swap
I mean, that's pretty smart. Yeah. I mean, I have I think the great thing about the Series 7 and onwards is the fast charging. Like I wake up in the morning, throw my watch on the charger, go shower and everything, and by the time I'm ready, the watch is already charged.
Yeah, basically.
So it's not really an issue for me. But then there are people that are like, oh, I wish my Apple Watch lasted 3 days. Like, you don't need it to last 3 days, realistically.
It'll be too heavy and you'll complain about that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with the whole ring situation, like, first of all, we have to see if Samsung even released theirs. Like, they've teased stuff in the past and not released it. Like Galaxy Home. Like, they're like, oh, this is a great... Yeah, that's true. Air power, yeah. I mean, it would be cool if Apple just expands to smart rings as well. I don't know how much it'll cost. It'll probably not be worth it when compared to an Apple Watch because the Apple Watch does so much more. But then you've got the battery life, and it's like, okay, maybe the battery will last 7 days or more. And it'll be more comfortable to wear when you're sleeping, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I'm kind of like on the fence on it. I just don't really see much of a need for it. And I don't think, and now that Samsung's doing it and Apple wants to do it, everybody's like, oh, Apple just always copies Samsung. They never have an original thought or an idea. When it's not true.
Other than multi-touch and the modern smartphone.
Yeah. and like mixed reality and working on that before Samsung.
Mark Zuckerberg said already that like the Quest 3 is way better than Vision Pro as a product. I thought that was a wonderful video. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I watched that.
His justifications.
Throughout the whole thing, I was like, "Okay, cool. Why aren't you showing the Vision Pro in the video?" Like maybe he's afraid of getting like some lawsuit, or Tim Cook's gonna be like, "Why are you doing this?" Like they're two completely different products. I think like they're for two completely different markets. Meta Quest, I believe, is more for gamers or like people who just want to have a VR experience, and then Vision Pro is more for people who want to be productive and actually do stuff.
I think last week Jacqueline, when she was on the podcast with us, kind of summed it up the best that I'd heard it, which is when I'm using Vision Pro, it's like I'm wearing Vision Pro and I think to myself, I might play a game now. Whereas with the Quest, you think, I want to play a game, and you go and put your Quest on.
Exactly.
So it's like the Vision Pro is designed to be, and seems to be, one that people are willing to wear throughout a workday, or will be wearing to do various tasks, as opposed to putting it on specifically to play a game. And I think that it kind of goes along the lines of what people are talking about as well with folding phones. It's like it's just adding an extra step before you actually do anything.
Exactly.
And that seems to be the worst thing about the folding phones at the minute. They do seem to have become more durable. I don't believe it particularly strongly, but they are more durable than they started. And let's remember that the first fold literally fell apart in most reviewers' hands. I think it was 50% of reviewers. It fell to pieces within the first 24
they're like
hours.
Removed the screen protector, and they weren't supposed to, and just the whole screen's dead.
I mean, maybe send instructions if nobody's ever seen this thing before, and you stuck a bit of plastic on it that you need to keep.
I actually saw something the other day. Somebody posted about it, and they're like, "Oh, Samsung, the Galaxy Z Fold 5 or 4, whatever is the latest one. Apparently, it passed for like military grade
Yeah, I saw that
use
as
or
well.
something, and I'm like, that thing's not durable at all. Normally, Samsung devices that are military grade are
Hmm.
like made out of titanium
And then
and
rubber over the
really
outside.
rubber and tough plastic for the glass and stuff. But the Z Fold 5, literally, you just take a fingernail and you just scrub it on
Yeah.
the screen, and your screen's ruined.
You know what though? If it is, amazing, great.
Yeah.
I would love for folding phones to be durable. I still don't feel like I want one, and I still feel like it's a solution in search of a problem to fix.
Hmm.
Like we have big phones. Like if you make a phone that folds a bit smaller, then it just means it's thick.
Yeah.
We,
No, like with folding phones, I understand the kind of like it's a tablet 1 minute, it's a phone the next, but I don't get the ones that are like the clamshell. It's like it's a phone 1 minute and then it's not a phone the next.
mm,
And like every time you use it, you have to take it out of your pocket, open it up to actually use the phone. But with like the iPad kind of foldables, you can use the outer display
yeah.
unless it's a Samsung Z Fold, because if you try to use that screen, it doesn't work very well. It's very
Okay.
narrow. But then like yeah, you open it up and it's a bigger screen.
Mm,
I like as a concept, I think it's really cool. I think there are some companies like OnePlus that are doing a really good job with it.
mm,
But then still, there's still too many trade-offs with the cameras aren't as good. The like some of them have the under display um, camera that just doesn't look as good, and then there's the plastic screen inside that's less durable. So there's a lot of trade-offs, I think, still with folding phones. And
yeah.
we even heard Apple's trying to work on their own, but now they put it on hold because, oh no, plastic screens aren't durable. Who
Who
knew? Who
knew?
knew?
Who knew?
um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, would I have a folding phone? I don't really see the need on it of it. Like as you said,
Mm,
phones are big enough. I think if I needed something any bigger, just get an iPad.
yeah.
It's no big deal.
And I do kind of I really like the idea of getting the iPad Mini, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, because I think that is about the right size. I wouldn't want it to be bendy. I don't know why. It doesn't appeal to me, the idea of it having a lower quality like feel to the screen. I want my
Hmm.
screen to feel like glass. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like my first smartphones were, if you go way back, like the XDAs, the old Windows, like
Right.
Windows Mobile before it was like the tile system. It
Hmm.
was just like a tiny version of Windows 95 on a screen with a horrible little stylus. And they're not good. They weren't good. Um, and even Apple with the first iPhone, they were trying to put a plastic screen on it. And after they did the keynote, they were like, yeah, no, this is horribly scratched up already. We need glass. Like, there's a reason that we use that. And I understand, I guess, if you're going to fold it in half, it's going to be protected most of the time. So, yeah, kind of makes sense. But there's a couple of the folding phones that I've seen where they were quite clever and used the main cameras for selfies as a
Yeah.
part of it. So
I think
putting the display next to
yeah, I
the
think by
main camera.
default you can, but like just out of the box you can use the rear cameras as the front facing camera as
Mm.
well.
Like that, I get, but also if you're folding it in half, that main camera has still only got half of the depth that you would have had on a regular phone to put
Hmm.
bigger sensors, bigger lenses,
That's
all
true.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
I
just too many
get that people want,
trade-offs.
yeah, everything's a trade off. Everything's always going to be a trade off. And that's the same with watches with battery life. It's the same with phones with how thick they are. If they're thicker, you're going to get better cameras. If they're thinner, you're going to get worse cameras, but it's going to be thinner and lighter in your pocket and stuff. Like
And it's gonna
everything
bend,
is,
probably most likely.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we've had these issues before. And certainly now the titanium stuff, because they're trying to make them so light again, they're becoming fragile on the backs because the titanium is not quite as rigid as stainless steel, even if it's
Hmm.
strong. There's so many different things in material science that make this a very complicated thing to do for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And I
as
think
if
even with
people do this for a living.
like going back to kind of like the clamshell Z Flip type
Mm,
phones, like I've seen a lot of people, they don't even close it anymore.
mm-hmm.
They just like keep the screen open and then they're like, oh no, my screen's all scratched. Yeah, because the screen is plastic. So if you put it in your pocket with keys or whatever, your screen's ruined.
Yep.
Like what's the point?
But
And
it's
it's just
also going to
annoying. Yeah,
fatigue if you keep folding it.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the crease that just gets worse and worse every time you open and close it,
Yeah.
and it just looks ugly. And every time you like scroll, you just feel this bump every time you. It's it's not. I don't think it's that practical, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. But
And I think while Android people keep calling us sheep, there's so many apologists for the horrible features that keep getting put into Android phones, and they're like, oh
oh
yeah, but that's
yeah,
fine because it's innovation.
they're like, oh yeah, you could squeeze your phone to call Google Assistant. That's innovation.
Okay,
Action
that's how
button
buttons
isn't.
work. You still squeeze it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And actually, moving on to the next topic, actually that I've got in the notes here, iPhone 16. We've started to see some rumors coming out, some molds coming out for the actual devices, which I guess are going out to case manufacturers. It does look like we're getting a vertical camera array on the base 16, which kind of looks a bit like the iPhone 10 and 10s, which is presumably for the spatial video. I
Mm-hmm.
still think that if you put a camera at the top and the bottom of the phone, you would get a much better spatial video because you're going to get closer to your
Yeah,
eye width.
because they're further away
Mm-hmm.
from each other.
But it also looks like we're going to get like an A18 chip in the base 16 phone instead of the A16 from the 15. Action buttons, capture buttons. What is the point in going with a Pro at this point for the next iPhone?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the rumor as well. Um, there's that guy that just randomly posts rumors and leaks and stuff, and he's like, "Don't believe this. This may not be true, but it could be true." And then they're like,
Sounds like
apparently there's
Manjin
going to
Buu.
be, Imagine Boo, yeah. There's five. There's going to be five iPhone 16 models:
Mhm.
16 SE, 16 SE Plus, 16 with 120 hertz display, and then the 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max. I don't think that's going to happen, but if that did, that would be quite interesting.
And a fidget spinner attached to the cameras.
Yeah, fidget spinner attached to the camera.
Very
I,
strange
have you seen
rumors.
those concepts where it's like they've got the fidget spinner camera lens but it like spins around?
Yeah. So I looked at that and I
Looks
was
a bit
like,
weird.
that looks ridiculous. And then I thought, what if it's actually different lenses going over the same sensor? Which would
Ooh,
be interesting. However,
actually,
I then immediately went, but you'd get debris in your sensor all the time,
that's true.
and it would break because it would probably activate in your pocket at some point when you didn't expect it to and start like
Yeah,
jamming.
kind of like pop-up cameras. Everyone's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is super cool," but then it just had too many issues.
Yeah.
Like
It's a
sand would get
great
caught in it,
idea
dust.
that doesn't work.
Hmm. Exactly.
But yeah, I mean,
One
it
of
would.
those things that some Android fanboys will die on a hill for.
Yeah.
It's like not really that practical if you think about it.
Oh yeah, someone will probably build a camera that's got that spinning camera lenses thing
Yeah,
that looks a bit like a microscope because they heard Apple was going to and they wanted to get out first, and then
probably
will realize
Huawei.
why it was horrible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a very strange concept. I I don't hate the look of having like a different level of camera bump. So you've got kind of like graduated on the way up, which is what they've done so far as well. The only reason we've got
Mhm.
that square there is basically so the cameras don't look like they protrude as far as they do. But they still do.
Yeah,
And I
they're
think the
still
fact that we
pretty
have that
pretty bad.
square is to kind of evoke the look of the app icon as well, that
Mm,
squircle.
that's
So
true,
I
actually.
think
Didn't
it
think of that.
fits. I think it just fits in with Apple's look on squircles everywhere. However, if we are going to get iOS 18 that kind of overhauls the look of iOS and potentially we go to circles and things like that for app icons, which I don't think we will, but some people are saying that we will, but I don't think we will. But I think we will get some cues coming over from Vision. Maybe some of that transparency coming back that we had in iOS 7
Hmm.
way back in the day. Yeah, maybe there is something to this. Maybe we are moving away from just squircles for everything.
I think it would be cool if they allowed us to actually customize all of our icons. Maybe with AI, like you'd say, like you say, I want this color, I want the icons to be this shape, and then it just generates it for everything.
Mm,
Like,
that
I
would
think
be
that would be
nice. I
interesting.
mean, I think
Android, because
one.
Android kind of does that with the Pixel,
Okay.
where like depending on the wallpaper, it changes the colors of the icons to match the wallpaper, and it's using AI to do that apparently. So they could do the same with iOS, but
I could
I don't know.
see Apple kind of making developers submit a monochrome version of their app icons as
Mm,
part of the submission process for their apps, where then
yeah,
you would be able to recolor them. That would be quite cool.
that's true.
I mean, it kind of goes over to that. Was it called
Material
Material
U.
UI or something? Material U?
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. Um, where a lot of stuff in the interface would change that way. I feel like Apple might go more along the lines of what you get on the Mac, where you get your dark mode and your light mode, and then you get an accent color. Um,
Right.
so that you could kind of just add whether it adds a sheen of that color or it adds something along those lines. I don't see them going fully customizable. Like we've been
Yeah,
able
probably
to
not.
switch app icons using shortcuts for 4 years, 3 years, something like that.
And we've also been able to do them for longer, but it's just like a more tedious process.
Yeah, I mean it's still tedious. Believe
Yeah,
me, like
it is.
I'm working on a video that tries to make it as not tedious as possible to customize your iPhone. But as usual, because it's more than one day's work, I got bored of it really quickly. So when
So
it will come
that
out is
so that
beyond
video
me.
will probably never see the light of day, basically.
Probably not. But the idea is that I can do it and then split it up into individual chunks for TikTok and stuff like that.
Right.
So all of the individual bits. But good God, like trying to change just an app icon with shortcuts is not a
I
simple
I think
matter.
I tried to do it the other day and I couldn't figure it out. So
Yeah.
probably watch your video when it comes out.
Okay. Well, I'll have to actually get on with it then. That's annoying. But yeah, I I'm not sure though what the 16 Pro is going to offer that's different. Whether it's going to be just the fact you can shoot to external hard drives, whether it's going to be the higher refresh rates. I mean, I guess the cameras will be better still, that kind of stuff. But
Something I'm excited for with the 16 Pro, we've heard that the ultra wide is going to be upgraded to 48 megapixels.
mm,
So that'll be nice.
yeah, because the ultra wide has always sucked
Yeah.
pretty
It's gotten
hard.
slightly better every year, but still, like every time you
Yeah.
use the ultra wide, or like for some reason it switches to the ultra wide because you're too close to the object, it just doesn't. It looks a bit grainy a lot of the
Mm.
time.
It's never been good. It's never been like a great camera. Um, do we think? Oh, we're hearing as well, obviously that, and this was last year even, that the 16 Pro will get the periscope camera. I know they don't call it a periscope camera; they call it a
Yeah.
tetraprism or
Hmm.
whatever. We're hearing that will come to the basic the 16 Pro. Um, okay. Has anyone been like
To
that excited by the
to be honest, most of the time
Five X?
I use the 5X on my 15 Pro Max. It doesn't even use the 5X camera,
Mm,
so I don't. And honestly, I don't really see that much of a difference. I went from the 14 Pro to the 15 Pro
yeah.
Max. 3x to 5x, there's not that much of a difference, to be honest. I mean, digital zoom, if you zoom in all the way, is a lot nicer. It's a lot
Mm,
crispier, but it's not really that drastic of a difference where it's like, I need to have this feature or else I'm going to die or whatever. Um,
yeah.
but
It's really tricky to know. But the last few years, they've really been making pro actually mean pro again. I think
yeah,
like the external recording, the ProRes video, the raw photos. I feel like they actually want only people that need the extra features to get this one, and the rest of you should get the basic 16 or the 15 or the 14. Like
even though the 15 Pro Max has been the best selling iPhone in the
it
past couple of
has,
months.
because everyone thinks they need it, but they don't. And I'm
Yeah, no,
wondering
exactly.
if that's where Apple is going to go, is like literally put stuff in there that people do not understand unless they are a content creator or something. Because I
Hmm.
think Apple probably makes a decent amount more money on the regular phones than the pros.
Probably.
in terms of materials and in terms of the sensors that they're buying and stuff like that. I think I, it looks like we're going to get spatial video on all of them, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's going to be so few people with a headset that does it matter? Which is why I
think
think
they're probably just trying to future-proof it.
Of course, because I
Um,
guess if you've been capturing spatial video for years, when an affordable headset that comes out that you can watch it back on in 3D arrives, the more content you've captured already, the more likely you are to splash.
yeah. No, 100%.
Or that spatial TV.
So, that spatial TV. Who
Apple
knows?
TV Spatial or Apple TV Vision or I don't know. Whatever they're going to
Vision
call
TV.
it. It's a very strange place we're in at the minute. I think it does make sense that Apple has done this now. I don't think it's ready for prime time. I don't think most people should buy Apple Vision at this point.
No.
Have you used any VR stuff?
I mean, I've
Are you into
tried
it?
the VR stuff with the phones back in the day, but I've not really
like
tried the
Google Cardboard and stuff.
yeah, like Google Cardboard. No, like I've not used the like the Meta Quest or anything. So I'm like I know vaguely how it works and everything, but I've not actually used one yet. So
The only one I've got is the Pico, which I got sent over as
right.
a review unit, and it's good. It's great fun. The kids love it. You know, I play crazy golf on it quite a lot and ping pong. And
Nice.
it's really, it feels realistic. Like when you're playing table tennis and you're popping the ball backwards and forwards and you're putting spin on it, it feels real. And you've got haptics in the handsets as well, which is one of the things that Apple is missing. Obviously, is like
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of not having the controllers because it's the same as like not having a stylus with the old iPads.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does give you physical feedback when you're doing stuff. You can
Yeah.
feel yourself hitting a ping pong ball.
I think for
And
gaming, it
mm,
it makes sense to have the controllers.
mm,
But then if it's for like normal use, maybe you can just get away with the other.
yeah, and I love the fact that Vision Pro has already got more native apps than the whole of Quest in a
Yeah,
week
that's
and a
so funny.
half, like 2 weeks.
And it's just gonna get better.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many more apps.
But most of those will then eventually move over to Quest and stuff, right? I guess in the same way that iOS stuff eventually moved to Android. Like people get it
Yeah.
first on the iOS version or the Vision version because that's where people are willing to actually pay. When you've got something that's
Mm-hmm.
as cheap as that, I think most people are looking for stuff they can do with it for free.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I think that feels like the way it's probably going to go in the end.
I mean, actually, something that I want to get your thoughts on, I guess,
Mm,
is what do you think about all the rumors we've been hearing with the iPhone SE 4 and like
mm.
that it's going to be more like an iPhone 15 than like a repurposed iPhone 10R.
So I definitely think if they were going to do a 10R repurposing, it would have been way before now. Like
Mm-hmm.
they had the opportunity to do that at the time. I think now the fact that I think Apple wants to move over to the dynamic island as being far more of uh, a brand play, if you like, and the fact that if they put the dynamic island on every phone that they're making, developers will be far more likely to push on it as well. So if you've got an SE that's got the dynamic island as well as the 15, the 15 Pro, the 14 Pro, you've got a lot of devices out there now that will have this dynamic island that they can kind of build stuff around and make it more of a
Mm-hmm.
thing, which then makes me think, are they going to bring it to the iPad? But I don't think it makes sense on the iPad as much because I don't think the thin bezels on an iPad make any sense.
Yeah, because
And the
then
iPad
palm
is designed to
rejection
be
is going to
used.
be.
Yeah, the iPad's designed to be used in multiple orientations as well. So I think
Mm-hmm.
hiding your cameras away in that bezel is a much better option. And I think they should invest more research, time, money into the front-facing cameras on the iPad than they do on the rear-facing cameras on the iPad,
Oh
because
yeah.
far fewer people are ever using those. So
Hmm.
why not put two front-facing cameras on the iPad so that you've got a landscape and a portrait one for FaceTime,
Yeah, that'd be good.
and drop some of the stuff on the back, like reduce your costs there. That would make more sense to me. And then where else would we use Dynamic Island? Like an iMac would be okay. Like you could go edge to edge with your display on a 24-inch iMac. You would get probably a 26-inch display in with a Dynamic Island. I think
Hmm.
that's a win for every day. And then the same with the MacBooks. Like move over from having the notch cut out to having a Dynamic Island that sits in your title bar. Still makes sense in the same way that it does now. That would make sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen concepts of them bringing it to like the Mac and the iPad, and I think
Mm.
they're really cool. Like, I think Apple is really moving away from the notch. Like we've seen it with the rumors we've been seeing with the iPhone SE. It just makes sense for them
Mm-hmm.
to just go. It probably costs them more to manufacture, but it makes sense as like a brand statement.
Yeah.
And also, if this new SE comes out, like, what better way of kind of actually giving a go at the mid-range smartphone market than bringing a cheaper version of the iPhone 15 out
Yeah.
with like action button, a good processor, a good screen, like 60 hertz. Nobody really cares,
Yeah.
but
You can
throwing the
stick with
dynamic
your one
island,
camera.
USB-C, yeah, it'll be. I think it'll be a great device. Like I think really the only thing people will complain about is just the fact that it'll have one camera. But if it's a 48 megapixel sensor, then you technically also have a telephoto because you could
Yeah, just
2x.
crop it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm excited to see if they actually do end up going with what's been rumored so far and just go all out, make the
Yeah.
best iPhone SE they can, and then price it at like $500, $550, and just sweep the floor.
Yeah, I can see $499 being like an SE that works for people.
Mm-hmm.
Sub $500, that makes sense. I think the one product I definitely don't want to see a dynamic island on is my watch. But
Do you imagine?
someone still wants to put a camera in there, don't they, for FaceTime?
Yeah.
Like you'd have your
It doesn't
weird
make
dick
sense.
tracer thing. You'd be looking up people's noses all the time. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. No, exactly. And also
And your
imagine
arm will hurt.
people think it's ridiculous that that people are going around with Vision Pros out in public. Imagine just being on FaceTime like this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what are they doing?
Is that like an 80s video? Is that like Adam and the Ants or something that walk along? It's very strange. But yeah, yeah, I think that's a good shout actually. The other product I guess that we've heard recently about is the HomePod with a screen. It looks like Apple TV OS has been sort of ported to an iPad mini that's been glued onto the front of a HomePod. And I guess this is what a kitchen computer looks like to Apple, even though they keep putting iMacs in people's kitchens in videos for promotions, which I don't think anyone's
So the
done.
kitchen table, like,
Yeah,
no, we
nobody
don't
does
eat
that.
here. This is where we work.
Yeah, this is the iPad space. This is what we wanted. The iMacs. Like it's very strange. But
Put
yeah,
on a cooking video while you're chopping onions.
well, yeah. I mean, that's what Vision Pro's for. We know this.
Yeah, I know.
You should definitely
Exactly.
wear a full-on headset while you use very sharp objects in your kitchen. That's the big takeaway from this podcast. So
With a low resolution screen.
yeah, exactly. So 2 questions before you go. Who should we invite on the podcast next?
It's a really good question, actually.
Yeah, I only came up with this in the car today, so I'm now going to ask everyone at the end of their podcast, like, who should I invite next so I don't have to do any work?
Let me see. I mean, we've got Taylor from TA Tech. He's always down to hop onto things, so you can invite him.
Cool.
Yeah, there you go.
That's your pick. Good. So I know we've got Luke Miani is hopefully coming up soon, which would be really cool. We're going to talk about hacking stuff. But yeah,
have you had Sam from iUpdate yet?
No, so we've had John on. We haven't had Sam on yet. But I'll text John and be like, "Tell Sam to come on. Tell Sam he needs to come and play." But yeah, I
he's a
think
fun guy.
it's on my list. And then the last question would be, where can we find you online, sir?
Well, just any like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, BenObi Tech, or BenObi Tech YT on YouTube, because for some reason they won't let me have the BenObi Tech handle. No idea why. And then on
I've
Twitter, I'm
registered that
BenObi 2000. Oh, thank you.
I'm just
Okay,
scalping
how much?
it until yeah, exactly. I'm waiting until you get super big. then,
Yeah,
then you
when
can
I've
have
got
it.
like 5 million subs, I'll have to pay you $1 million to get it.
Exactly. It makes
But yeah,
sense.
and then on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, I'm BenObi 2000 over there. So it's a bit
Beautiful.
confusing, but
And that's where we interact probably the most and like troll people.
yeah,
It's good fun.
it's so fun.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. And guys, we will see you in the next one.
A complete revolution. We figured out a way. We machined all of the surfaces to create something that's genuinely new. You have to start again. Unapologetically plastic. Aluminium.